They called her girl like it was an insult. They told her to leave or face the consequences. To them, she was just another outsider, weak, alone, and easy to scare. But what none of them knew was that the woman standing at that bar wasn't just anyone. And when one tattooed biker finally raised his hand, ready to put her in her place, what happened next would leave every man in that room begging for mercy. If you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and tell us in the comments where you're watching from, because this story is one you won't forget. The man who spoke first called himself Cade, or at least that was the name stitched on the leather vest stretched across his shoulders. He was broad, with shaved sides, a beard like steel wire, and 2 black stripes tattooed around his forearm. Around him sat 7 others, all wearing the same black vests marked with skull patches and iron crosses. Across their backs, one name curved like a warning, Iron Reapers. This was their turf, their kingdom, and they made sure everyone who walked in knew it. At the bar stood a young black woman, jeans faded at the seams, white tank top showing arms that were lean but defined, the kind you get from work, not vanity. Her hair was pulled back into a sleek ponytail, her hands resting around a plain glass of soda. She looked calm, almost detached, like someone trying to blend in after a long day. But Cade didn't like calm. He slammed his hand against the counter, his voice thick with whiskey and contempt. "Not your kind of place," he growled. "Drink somewhere else. Or better yet, clean the floors like you belong." The man behind him laughed, low and mean. The bartender kept his eyes on the glass he was wiping. The other patrons sank deeper into their seats, pretending not to notice. Nobody was going to help her. Still, the woman didn't flinch. Her eyes drifted to the mirror behind the bottles. Her face was calm, unreadable. No fear, no tremble. Just silence. She lifted her glass slowly and took a sip. Then placed it back down without a word. The silence only fueled them. Cade leaned in closer, his shadow spilling across her glass. His breath reeked of stale beer and smoke. "You're making everyone uncomfortable," he sneered. "Why don't you smile? Show a little respect." Still, she said nothing. Her eyes stayed level, unblinking, as if he wasn't even worth the energy of a response. From the side, another biker slid off his stool. Tall, wiry, with a teardrop tattoo under one eye, his name was Rory. He smirked, his voice dripping with mockery. "Come on, Cade. She's just lost. Maybe she needs directions, to the gas station. Or the kitchen." The men erupted in laughter, their voices sharp and cruel. Cade grinned, showing off a silver tooth. "Or maybe the back door," he added, and the laughter got louder. The bartender never looked up. The other patrons never moved. Every set of eyes avoided hers. In that moment, she was alone. But inside, she wasn't shaken. Her instructors had drilled something into her years ago. Restraint is a weapon. Stay calm until you strike. Rory stepped toward the door, blocking her way out with his arm. 2 others shifted closer, their boots heavy against the wood floor. Cade snapped his fingers in her face like she was some kind of dog. "Hey! I'm talking to you." The whole bar seemed to shrink. The air pressed tight. All around her, leather creaked as the Iron Reapers adjusted on their stools, waiting for the show. Finally, her voice cut through the noise, soft, cold, and steady. "Move your hand." Cade blinked. "What?" I said, "Move your hand." The laughter faltered. Cade's smirk returned, but it was thinner now. "Or what? You gonna call your boyfriend? Out here, sweetheart, we are the law." And with that, his hand rose, ready to slap her across the face. The world seemed to slow as Cade's hand cut through the air. She'd felt this moment before, not in a bar, but in dusty alleys overseas, clearing rooms under fire. Every detail sharpened, the weight of the glass in her hand, the scrape of boots on wood, the faint hum of the neon sign above. Her instructors' voices echoed in her mind, "Control the angle. Control the wrist. Neutralize fast." And then she moved. Her hand shot up, locking around Cade's wrist before it reached her cheek. The smirk on his face collapsed into wide-eyed shock. With one twist, cartilage shifted and Cade gasped in pain. Before he could recover, she slammed his arm down against the bar, pinning him in place. A glass toppled, shattering across the floor. "Sit," she ordered. He did, or rather, she forced him down, his back crashing against the stool. The room erupted. Rory lunged, but she hooked his ankle with a sharp kick, yanking him face-first to the ground. Another man swung wildly. She ducked, caught his elbow, and drove it straight into the counter with a crack that made the crowd flinch. His scream cut through the bar as he cradled his arm. In less than 5 seconds, their leader was pinned, one man was sprawled on the floor, and another was groaning in agony. The laughter was gone. The swagger drained from every leather vest in the room. She stood tall, her shoulders squared, her voice calm. "Anybody else?" Nobody moved. At the far end, a trucker who'd been watching quietly fumbled out his phone, the red light of his camera blinking on. "Lady," he whispered under his breath. "You're something else." Cade clenched his jaw, his pride bleeding faster than his wrist. You're dead. You don't know who we are." Amira leaned in, her voice low enough for him alone. "And you don't know who I am." Then she spoke louder, so the whole bar could hear. "Staff Sergeant Amira Halt. United States Marine Corps. You just picked the wrong woman." The room rippled with shock. Whispers spread. Phones lifted higher. And for the first time, the Iron Reapers looked smaller than the woman they had mocked. The name hit the room like a gunshot. Staff Sergeant. United States Marine Corps. For a moment, no one moved. The only sound was Cade's ragged breathing and the clink of a broken glass sliding across the floor. The bartender finally looked up, his hands frozen mid-wipe, eyes wide with disbelief. Phones rose higher. Red recording lights blinked across the bar, capturing every angle. In a world where humiliation lived forever online, this moment was already out of their control. Rory scrambled up from the floor, his voice shaking. We didn't know." "You didn't care," Amira replied, her tone steady, almost quiet. She grabbed a napkin, wiped her hands as if she'd only spilled her drink, and turned back to the counter. "Another club soda, please." The bartender swallowed hard, poured, and slid the glass to her with trembling fingers. The Iron Reapers huddled, whispering, shifting in their seats. They weren't used to silence, but now it wrapped around them like a noose. Their leader was on his knees, 2 of their toughest were writhing on the floor, and the woman they'd called girl stood untouched, calm, barely even catching her breath. And just when the bar seemed frozen, the sound came, deep, rumbling, unmistakable. Motorcycle engines outside. The floor vibrated under heavy boots. The front door handle turned. Amira set her glass down gently, stood, and rolled her shoulders. Her eyes flicked toward the entrance, steady as stone. "Round 2, she murmured. The door slammed open. Cold night air swept in. More leather vests poured through, the black and white patches glowing under the neon sign. At their head was a stocky man with braided gray beard and fists like sledgehammers. His name was Brick Malloy, and from the look on his face, he didn't come for conversation. "What the hell happened here?" he barked, scanning the room. His eyes locked on Cade cradling his wrist, on Rory's swollen jaw, on the silence of his crew. Then his gaze fell on her. "You," he growled. "You did this." She didn't flinch. "They tried to hit me." "So you hit back?" "I defended myself." More boots thundered in behind him. The doorway filled with Iron Reapers. 20 men in all, circling like wolves around one woman at the bar. Brick sneered, his voice low and cruel. "Grab her. We'll teach her what happens when you step into our house." But before they could move, her voice cut the air like a blade. "United States Marine Corps. Step back." The room froze. Even the engines outside seemed to fall silent. For a split second, the circle held. Brick's jaw twitched, his men waiting for the signal. Amira could see it in their eyes, 20 bikers against one woman? To them, the math was easy. But math didn't win fights. Training did. Calm did. Precision did. Brick barked, "Get her!" Chaos erupted. The first two rushed from her left. She sidestepped, grabbed a pool cue off the rack, and snapped it across one man's chest before spinning the broken end into the second's stomach. Both collapsed with guttural groans. Another swung a bottle. She ducked under the arc, the glass exploding against the wall. She came up hard with an elbow under his chin, sending him sprawling into a table that splintered beneath his weight. 3 more came at once. Amira launched herself onto the counter, using the high ground. A kick to the jaw. A heel to the temple. She dropped down behind the last, yanked him by his vest, and drove his face into the bar edge with a crack that silenced even the loudest of them. The crowd gasped. Phones shook in trembling hands, recording every move like it was a movie scene come alive. Brick charged then, all brute force and fury. He swung wild, a haymaker meant to take her head off. She ducked under, felt the wind of it graze her ear, and struck fast, palm heel to his solar plexus, followed by a sharp knee that dropped him to one knee. The man wheezed, shock in his eyes. No one had ever made him bend before. Still, they kept coming. A chair flew through the air, she caught it mid-swing, twisted, and sent it crashing into its wielder instead. Another tried to grab her from behind. She slammed her head back, connecting with his nose, and felt the spray of blood on her shoulder. One after another, they fell. Not all stayed down, but none found the courage to charge twice. When the last straggler stumbled back, groaning and clutching his side, the bar was unrecognizable. Tables overturned, glass shards glittering on the floor, the air thick with sweat, fear, and disbelief. Amira stood in the center, chest rising steady, hair loose around her face but her stance unshaken. Brick leaned against the wall, coughing, his pride and his crew broken. He glared at her with something he'd never aimed at anyone before. Not hate. Not anger. But fear. And then came the sound, sirens, wailing in the distance, growing closer. Red and blue lights flickered against the walls. Someone had called the cops. Phones lowered. Men shifted nervously. Amira dusted off her hands, calm as ever. "Looks like your night's over, boys." Red and blue strobes spilled through the front windows before the first cruiser even screeched to a halt. Tires shrieked outside, radios crackled, and then the doors burst open. 4 officers stormed in, hands on weapons, eyes darting from overturned tables to groaning bikers sprawled across the floor. "What the hell happened here?" one barked, stepping over shattered glass. For a moment, nobody spoke. The Reapers shifted uncomfortably, their bravado gone, blood drying on their knuckles and faces. Brick leaned against the wall, one arm wrapped tight around his ribs, glaring at the floor. The bartender, pale as chalk, raised a trembling hand toward Amira. She did this." Every cop's gaze snapped to her. A lone woman, standing tall, hair damp with sweat, breathing steady, eyes calm. She didn't run. She didn't plead. She simply straightened her shoulders and said, "They started it. I ended it." One officer frowned. "Ended it? Lady, you just took down half the Iron Reapers inside 10 minutes. Phones came up again. People were whispering, the word viral already floating between them. But the cops weren't amused. They closed in. Hands where we can see them. For the first time all night, Amira hesitated. She could fight bikers. She could fight chaos. But cops? That was a different battlefield. She raised her hands slowly, calm, deliberate. Brick lifted his head, voice hoarse but loud enough. "She's dangerous. Lock her up." He coughed mid-sentence, spitting red into his beard. "She ain't normal." The officers looked between him and her. One muttered, "Not normal's an understatement." And then, like fate itself was buying her time, another officer entered from outside, phone in hand. He showed his screen to the others, shaky footage already uploaded, already gaining traction. "Boss," he said, "this woman's all over the internet. Half the city's seen it already. People are calling her a hero." A heavy silence. Brick's face twisted. His word meant less than nothing now. The lead cop studied Amira, jaw tight. "Hero or not, you're coming with us. We'll let the brass sort this out." The cuffs clicked cold around her wrists, but her expression never changed. Calm. Collected. Almost like she knew this wasn't the end. Just another chapter. And as they led her past the wreckage, every man who had mocked her an hour before lowered his eyes. Because respect isn't demanded. It's earned. And tonight, she'd earned it the hard way. The cuffs bit into her wrists as they guided her outside. Flashing lights painted her face in red and blue, a strange halo for someone the world couldn't quite label yet, criminal, fighter, or savior. Across the street, a crowd had gathered. Neighbors, barflies, random onlookers pulled by the sirens. Every single one of them had their phones up, capturing the woman who had single-handedly broken the Iron Reapers inside their own den. Some whispered legend. Others whispered monster. Amira walked steady, chin high, every step measured. Brick was dragged out behind her, still cursing through broken teeth, but his words carried no weight now. Nobody was looking at him. All eyes were on her. One teenager pushed forward, phone inches from her face, asking, "Who are you?" Amira turned, the ghost of a smile tugging at her lips. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. Because sometimes silence is louder than words. The cops shoved her into the back of the cruiser, slammed the door, and the engine roared. But even as the car pulled away, the whispers only grew. The videos only spread. And the world? It had just been introduced to a woman no one could ignore. But here's the real question, was this the end of her story, or the beginning of something much bigger? One night. One woman. One bar full of men who thought they owned the room. They called her weak. They called her nothing. They thought she'd break. Instead, she walked in as a stranger and walked out as a legend. The Iron Reapers had ruled that corner of the city for years, feared, untouchable, certain no one would ever challenge them. But all it took was one unexpected fighter to expose their weakness, their belief that fear made them powerful. Amira didn't fight for pride. She didn't fight for attention. She fought because when a line gets crossed, you don't back down, you stand your ground. And though the night ended with cuffs on her wrists, the truth was already out. The world had seen. The world had chosen. And respect, once taken by force, had shifted to someone who never asked for it, but earned it. So maybe the real question isn't what happened inside that bar. It's what happens next.